Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and today I'm here with Heather Ferrari. And if you are looking for some tips and tricks on how to run your business more effectively and efficiently and have more money, then today is the day you want to listen in. So Heather, why don't we start by you introducing yourself?
Well, thank you so much for reaching out and having me on today. My name is Heather Ferrari. I have been in small business my entire life. My dad's owned a restaurant for over 52 years in August. And my grandfather owned businesses as well. So it's definitely been in my blood. I owned and operated my own insurance office at the age of 23, moved up into leadership, and then went back into agency because I loved it so much. Retired for a bit, and then started working with professionals in a coaching capacity.
Wow. Okay. So how did you transition? What made you leave where you went from selling insurance to finding your clients? Like, what did you do?
So much in between. So I decided to retire from insurance after 11 years and be a mom, actually. Okay. So we had a hard time getting pregnant, and when we finally did, she was about 2, and I just decided that it was the last one we were going to have, one and done, and so I decided to take that opportunity to just be with her and just kind of enjoy that time in her life, and so I took a few years off, and I was reached out to by someone that I had met while I was doing insurance that ran a company. Actually, I was coached by them. I had a coach myself, and said, hey, how about you come work with us? And so I did work for them for just shy of 6 years. And then right before the pandemic, I decided to open up my own company.
Good for you.
Like literally 2 weeks before shutdown of the whole world, I decided I should open a business.
You know what?
So
that was
the transition.
Yeah. That was probably the best time though, because everyone had to go home. And so you're able to work from home and help people continue with their businesses, because that was a tough time.
It was definitely a transition. And I think that, even people that were used to working in an office and around a lot of people now trying to set up a home office and lead their teams from afar, there was definitely some different tactics and techniques that we all had to get used to still in order to grow and in order to overcome the day-to-day that we were all faced with.
Tough time, that was. So I admire you that you decided to take some time, because getting pregnant when you haven't been able to is tough. I've been there, and I have twins because of it, but it's an emotional roller coaster. And so when you finally have the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to take some time because this is our one and only, I really admire you for that. And so how did you handle that transition though? Because you go from having a payoff at work where people are telling you thank you and you're helping people, to a baby that can't tell you thank you. It's just adorable and sweet and you want to hold it all the time. But was that a hard transition for you?
I think that it was harder for me to let go of some labels that I had generated for myself over the years, to the mom label, which, when you are in leadership and you're a manager and you're a top performer and you just have all of these accolades and things that kind of built who you are, when that's all taken away, it definitely makes you revisit many, many things. So the transition for me was just kind of, I knew that I was supposed to be a mom and take care of my little one for the time that I could be with her. I did miss about the first 3 years of her life, really. I was still working very much. My husband actually was a stay-at-home dad, which allowed me to continue my career path. And then we decided to switch roles. he went back to work, and I switched back. So there was a lot of transition. Oh, and we also moved to a different state during all of that too.
Oh, wow.
So people thought we were crazy, and maybe we were a little bit, but I think it was harder to let go of like corporate America and who I had established myself. There was a lot of identity for me inside that company, and so what I knew, and now I was going to have this other opportunity to be called and develop as something else, and really, so many things are good with letting go of the labels at the same time. So the transition was really needed in a lot of areas in my life to kind of check myself before I wreck myself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, and she's just a sweetheart. It was so much fun. We just, my husband kept saying, I go to work to get to party all day. And he pretty much did. Like, I really hadn't had that time. So we were always doing things and met a bunch of friends that way that we're still lifelong friends with. Because, you know, my social life was people I worked with.
Right.
So it was like going back and like moving into a new school. Like I had to make new friends. It was, which was not difficult or anything, but it was just something that a lot of my friends that I had worked with. So once that was all kind of gone and in a new state, and I got to kind of create a new version, I guess, of myself.
That's cool. That's really cool. So now, I mean, you're working again, so you're doing business coaching and stuff. So how do you manage motherhood with your coaching business?
I am a huge believer in schedule. I live and die by my schedule, and not to the point where it's not flexible. I look at it as like a living, breathing document. Just like we experienced today, we had some technical challenges, and things sometimes happen. My daughter's involved in 2 sports right now, so there's a lot of games and getting her to places, and bless everyone's heart, you have twins. I don't know what it's like to have doubles. I just know how interesting it can be with one who's involved in multiple things. And so I really try to set myself up for success for the week. I try to take time for myself, that sometimes I have to wake up fairly early to do that. But I do, after kind of going through that transition I did when she was little, I realized how much time I wasn't giving to myself, and how depleted I was for really everybody at that moment when I wasn't giving back to myself. So I have time for a workout. I have time to, meditate and do some things, journaling and things like that. And sometimes it's not a lot of time, and sometimes it's a lot, but I also plan ahead with her sports stuff. I invite my husband to those things, so it shows up on his calendar. And then I work with my clients either every other week or weekly, depending on their needs. And so I put them in places that make sense. I work with a lot of people on the East Coast too, which is an advantage. So I have clients that I start with at 6 a.m. my time, 8 a.m. their time, but it allows me to be done a little bit earlier here on Mountain Time.
That's great.
So I've been able to manage that. It's definitely not perfect, and I hope it never is, just because it does keep me on my toes and learning and adjusting for things that happen in our day-to-day.
I love that. And for those listening, we tried multiple different ways to be able to record on video. And finally, I'm actually talking to her on our phones and recording through Zoom. And so, you have to adjust and you have to do things just to make sure that it works. And so, I think that that's important. So with your coaching, what type of stuff do you do for coaching?
It's definitely customized coaching. So I work with individuals that are brand new in sales. So they've decided to get into this crazy thing we call sales, and we have no experience. So like where I work with our leaders, and they're like, hey, I've hired this person, let's get them started, to people that are running a massive organization of over 100 people and operations teams and 100 selling people. So it just depends depends on the individual. I have people that are running companies that are looking to franchise their businesses. And so I work with people where they're at. Because if I was to say to you, hey, most times people are successful with what they're doing, or else they wouldn't be still doing it. So a lot of stuff they have down, but it's sometimes digging into the little things that make a huge impact if we were to do that little thing for a week or 2 weeks or a month or however long. But it's identifying that sometimes when you're working in your business, you're not working on it, or you're not stepping outside of it to say, gosh, I never even realized that wasn't something to pay attention to. Where I always felt like I needed to pay attention to that. I just haven't had time,
Right.
or I haven't felt like I had the knowledge or the resources. So it really depends from being brand new to being very seasoned and just looking how to finish strong in their career. I work with quite a few moms that were where I was at. So you're giving up a lot for. There was a time when my daughter was little that I felt like a milk truck, right? Like I just was there to provide the fuel for her, and it was just kind of like she was asleep when I left in the morning, and she was asleep a lot of the time when I would get home, and that wasn't a mom life that I had wanted for myself. And so I take that, and somebody came into my life. Like I said, I hired a coach. They helped me with my schedule and all these ideas that I thought of things I couldn't do. Reality of it is I had to take different permissions for myself.
Yeah.
So I like to help people with that, realizing that yes, I can say yes, and also say no. It really is a permission to what makes the most sense for you. And so I do work a lot with schedule. I work with processes and systems. So sometimes people just need help from the minute somebody comes to the door, their client or whoever, all the way to the end past sale. So we work on different operations, CRM or client management systems. So it's all across the board, which keeps it really fun for me and exciting for me. And I'm learning constantly. I'm learning a whole new CRM with the client right now, which is amazing. So it just depends on where the person is and what really we can dig into that's going to give them feeling like they're winning, right? Like sometimes it's, especially with my leaders, I'm like, who's coaching the coach? Because they give so much themselves and no one's filling their bucket.
So true. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And that's something that a lot of people don't think of is you have these managers. I remember when I ever got my very first management position where I was in charge of probably 75 instructors and several program directors, because I used to run a college, right? And so I remember driving to work one day and I'm like, why in the heck is anybody listening to me? What do I have to offer? And like that imposter syndrome starts to kick in. And then, we took a school from 9 diploma programs to 22 bachelor and associate programs, and from 300 students to 700 students in a matter of less than a year. And so, we were very, very successful. We went from 1 campus to 4 campuses, but that imposter syndrome, because I didn't have somebody to bounce ideas off. Like my manager, he was phenomenal, but there wasn't anybody that, hey, I'm having this idea, or I'm coaching this, or I'm thinking this, and what do you think about this? It was an interesting time. And somebody like you, it would be great to bounce ideas off. So I think it's very needed.
Well, and sometimes you have blinders on also because you're just in the culture, or, sometimes having somebody outside of your organization bringing things that are working in multiple industries and even similar businesses is a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not really seeking that. You're just kind of going through the motions a lot of the time.
Right.
And I can totally relate to your story as well. And not because they're not great people. I had excellent leaders and mentors along the way, but there is can you still hear me?
Yeah.
There is something about having somebody outside sometimes it just comes down to having a cheerleader.
Yeah.
You know, you want somebody also that's like, you got this.
Yeah,
like, you're doing okay. You're doing good. And sometimes as a leader, especially, you get beat down in a lot of areas.
Well, and I think also, you know, I think any industry you're in, it's incestual. And what I mean by that is there's only one industry and people are really good at that industry. So they're going to go from, like for me, you went from college to college to college, you know, different colleges. So we all just kind of went around the merry-go-round, right? And so my husband, he's in program management, and these people go from company to company to company, and they just, you know, it's incestual, and everybody knows each other in that specific industry. But yet you create a culture in that place. And so everyone's used to doing in a certain way. So you bring an outside perspective, like you as a coach, you bring an outside perspective and you're like, well, have you ever thought of that? No. Well, it works.
Yeah, like I thought about how to make the bathroom this today. Like I'm so slammed. Like I haven't thought forward. I haven't thought ahead.
Yep. Yeah. And eating.
Like drinking from the fire hose, you know?
It's so true. Well, tell me about a success story from your coaching experience that shows kind of the impact that you can have on a business.
That's so many. This is such a great question for me. And here's the thing, it's like, it's not, they have to do the work.
So yeah.
When I say there's so many, it's like I have so many people that have believed in what we were doing, and of course they took action and just did some incredible things. So one that comes to mind, and she's also, if you check out my website, she has a testimonial on there, but she says I saved her marriage. She's very successful. I mean, she has a PhD. She's very intelligent. She has 2 young boys, and she's in the mortgage business. And we started working together at a time where that was an insane in business. You can relate, right?
Yeah, I'm a mortgage officer too. So yep, I understand.
Yeah, and so she's like, I don't know how I can do this. And what she actually, I said for Mother's Day on Sunday for Mother's Day, and her message back to me was just something that sometimes success isn't always like dollar driven. She just said, being a mom to these 2 boys is the best job I've ever had. It's hard and it's painful, but seeing these kids become awesome little humans is the best gift. Thanks for helping me see that it doesn't really matter how much I make. It matters to be a mom. I want people to have a career that makes that possible. And it's sometimes said to us that like we can't have both, or we can't have both successfully. And I truly believe that you can. Even in this time that it's switched now, right? It's a lot harder out there with the end mortgage. She just had one of her best months last month.
Oh, that's great. That is so good. So what do you recommend with businesses if they're looking to scale their business? What are some strategies that you recommend that they have or that they know?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you've got a really good one. I think that we have to start with them, right? You can only scale to a certain point as a human, like as a person. There's only so many things that you can give. And honestly, for a lot of people, they don't want to delegate, right? They don't want to entrust somebody with the things that they're doing. And so I would say probably, especially with successful businesses that have peaked, they are not able to do all the things, and they're scared to hire someone because they're worried they're not going to do it as well. Or they don't want to invest in somebody that's just going to leave. Or, you know, I've tried this before, and it's like there's 1,000 excuses and reasons for it, but a lot of times it's them unloading things off of their plate successfully. So we have a process for whatever they are delegating. It's not just like, hey, give it away and let them take the reins and good luck. It's more, how do we systematically approach this, or a process that we can do that you feel there's safety there for you, that it's getting done in a way that you like it to be done, and that it still will get the same result even if it's not you. Because what that usually does is free up 8 hours or so in a week for somebody, maybe even more, depending on what they're on. And so now we have 8 hours of time that we can reinvest in themselves a lot of the time. Like, hey, you've got some time now, like go to the gym, or take that class, or hey, you have time to recruit another person, because you freed up that time for delegation. So that's a lot of times where people start. Maybe if it's a one-man show, it's also how to hire the right, especially if you've never really been in a leadership role before, but now you're like in charge of people. Like you have to manage people and try to find the right people for what you're trying to hire for, and creating a recruiting process, and a hiring and an onboarding process. A lot of times people don't have that. They're already at like in their dire straits, right? It's like, I have to hire somebody, but I don't have time, and then they skip steps, and then they hire someone that doesn't work out, and then now it's like, but I've tried that and it didn't work. Well, let's look at the process. What didn't work with the process?
It's true. And I think that that's probably because I'm one that has a hard time trusting other people, but at the same time, like once I do hire somebody, it's like, I want to give you everything and just here, go do it, instead of, okay, well, maybe I need to let you learn this first and then go do this. Or, I used to read my mind, just, this is how I did it. I figured it out on my own. So I expect you to do the same thing. And most people like that, they're like, no, that's not, there's a difference between an entrepreneur mind and there's 5 different levels of an employee, and somebody who is willing to, I don't have a good word for it, but somebody who wants to punch a clock and they don't want to have to think about things once they leave. My husband is that way. And so I'm like, oh, okay, there's different ways. Yeah. I used to not.
I've been at work, I'm like, that's great.
I know. And so
people like you that can invest everything they have while they're there.
Exactly.
But once they're out. Be okay.
And that's, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
No, I was going to say, and that's the type of person you want to hire, because they are going to do a good job, because they want to not have to worry about it once they leave, And so when people are like, oh, I just can't find any good people. Well, that's just not true, because you were there. There's many more people. So you just have to find them and ask the right questions and trust. So.
Well, here's a Heatherism for you. I believe that people don't fail.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the person that you hired wasn't a good fit. You just didn't have the right setup for them to be successful inside of. I'm working with a great gal in New York right now. She runs a huge networking group on top of her day-to-day job as well, and she has an employee, wonderful, who's had for years. She's like, I just need to replace him. Let's look at your delegation process here. And what we come to find is like, she felt he was failing her, but kind of what you said is like she wanted him to speak her mind or do it, know what to do, because that's how she did it. You're one of a kind. Like, not everybody's going to be like you. And we've seen something. Now she's delegating, like every week she gives him something, and he fulfills it. People will rise up to the expectation you set, but if it is chaos is the expectation, why would we expect anything?
Exactly. No.
Then your chaos.
I totally agree. And that's the thing, like I've seen so many people where they are these worker bees that will just work their heart out. And so then, when something happens and they don't do it right, the manager comes to him and is like, well, how would you, like, why aren't you doing this? And he goes, whoa. I have been asking for 6 months and you have never given me anything other than this. And I have followed that. And what do they have to say after that? Like, walk back out of the room with your tail between your legs, because, you can't get mad at the person.
Exactly. And most people don't come to work to fail.
No, I know.
How can I mess up today? As they walk in the door, right? And so we have to give them the benefit of the doubt as well. And anytime that we self-reflect, and if we can leave at the end of the day saying that we did everything that we possibly could to help that person be successful, then it may just not be the right fit. Right. But if we don't answer that with yes, then who is it on? Right.
And I think I call them documented conversations, because sometimes you walk out of the room hearing something completely different than what I said, or vice versa. Like here's a perfect example. I love my mother-in-law, and she came the other week. And long story short, we left, and my husband, he comes upstairs and he's like, "What was that? You just invited her to come live with us." I'm like, "No, I didn't." He goes, "Yes, you did." And I said, "Well, she." And she's invited. That's not the issue. But, it was just, why did we have this conversation before? And of course, like, we'll see if anything comes of it. But, it really is interesting how people's perceptions are different based upon how they're feeling that day or what's happening. So document a conversation of, hey, here's what we talked about. Here's the takeaways, and here are my expectations. Okay, now it's in paper. Now you can't say, well, that's not what you told me. And so a lot of times, like you talk about with systems, when you're talking with somebody in counseling, documented conversations don't have to be a bad thing. It's just, hey, just so that we're on the same page, this is what if I didn't say this, this is what I meant to say, right? And if you have questions, here we go.
You heard.
Yeah.
Like that's a great question.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm gonna go through this. Then I'm gonna have you tell me back what you heard.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I said it right.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I gave it the best way. Especially for someone like me who rambles, like I can totally lose somebody in those conversations, and they're like, "What was the point?" But if you repeat it back to me, and I'm like, "Oh no, man, I missed the mark. Sorry about that." Right? That's on me. Yeah. We're close, but we haven't quite nailed it yet. So let me go again, and then let's back and forth. Even just that small pause, will change the relationship too, because now it's not like this download dump on somebody and not ask them for what they heard and what they feel they're supposed to act.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Before you leave the room, you definitely need to make sure that you're both on the same page.
And have an expectation of a time frame.
Yes.
That's the other thing I would say too, is like, okay, we both understand what we're supposed to be doing here. When should we, have a check-in, or when should we have it done, and then have check-in scheduled for tasks or however you're set up to check in and not wait till the end.
Right.
Because then if it's not great, then you're struggling and you're maybe out of time. So those check-ins are critical as well.
Yep, absolutely. 100% agree. Sorry for that little chime. Okay, so if you have a client that's wanting to boost their revenue and have sustainable growth, what is a top priority for a business? And I know it can depend on like the industry, but overall, like what's a universal top priority that businesses need to know so that they can boost their revenue?
Well, you got to have people to talk to, right? Like in most businesses, they need clients, they need prospects, they need people to have interest in what they're trying to promote, which brings the revenue, right? So if your revenue is selling the real estate, for example, right, or mortgage, or I work for Roofer. He has a roofing company. I have learned more about roofing, and it's been awesome. But everybody usually needs a customer. And so if somebody really wants to increase their revenue, that's one of the first places I would jump into is what is your client management process like? Sometimes think about a roof. How often do you replace the roof?
Right. Yeah.
You probably sell your house before you replace it, or you replace it when you sell it, right? So think about the time in between that for a customer, or let's say even a mortgage, for instance. Like most people, will sell their house before they pay off their mortgage,
right?
And so the time in between is important. What are we doing to stay relevant to the people that we work so hard to get? Referrals is a big part of that. If you've made an impression, and this is what I love about working with people, that they're like, well, if they really like me, they're and their people to me. I'm like, honey, you are not that special. Like after they've got what they need, they're on to life. So it is up to you to help yourself by getting them process. So even after the sell, I'm curious what we're doing. And then build upon that, right? Like, so if this is your niche market, you would be able to identify that through your database or through the clients that you do have. There's probably some similarities. And then we find ways to go after that niche market. And sometimes that's picking up the phone. Sometimes that's, networking. Sometimes that you can buy lists, like you can be more active on social media. Like there's 1,000 things to do after that. We just got to do them. And a lot of times it's relationships. That's what we sell is the relationship with the product. And so if they can trust you and you can show them, why you're the best fit, then how are you continuing that relationship going forward? So those would be some things that I would dig into. Like where's the revenue been coming from? Something's working. Where can we maximize that?
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Okay, so my last question for you is, if you were sitting on a park bench talking to your 19-year-old self, and you gave her one piece of advice, and it could be in business, it could be personal, it could be professional, it can be health, spiritual, I don't care. Pick a category. What advice would you give?
Well, first of all, knowing the 19-year-old self, I would be like, girl, you just need to listen right now. Like, I know you're going to roll your eyes at me and have your own way of doing things, but this is me talking to you in the future, right? Like, listen up, kid. But then I would just say, it's okay to fail. Mess things up. Get MVP. Like, if it is so, be okay with failure because of what you're going to learn in that. And that's because since 19, I've had a lot of failures, and I've had some things that have left me in financial ruin. I've had things that have left me in spiritual ruin. I have some things that have left me in personal ruin, my health. Like, I have definitely failed it. And I definitely don't have it all figured out. I would also encourage them, like, look, especially at 19, right? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to college? Like, there's so many things that happen at that age. Like, look, today, what's one thing that you do that makes you feel like you're winning today? And if you mess up, what would you do different instead of looking at it as failure? So I would hope that would inspire that 19-year-old version of myself. But also at 19, I got into sales. Like, that was my first sales job, was at 19. And I don't know if I would have changed that direction at all, or, sometimes you just dive in and figure it out. So I guess I would say, listen, girl, and, look for travel. Like, do some of those things early. You have a lifetime to become who you need to be. And there will be people along the way that are going to help you, and there are going to be people along the way that want to destroy you. Stay with people that want to help you.
Yep. Your champions. Nope. I love that. And I like that you said, well, I know what my 19-year-old self is, because we all think at 19 that we know everything and we don't need anyone telling us what to do. And that's why I choose 19. But, I look back at that time where I was until now, and I just think, oh my gosh, I was so naive. And I hope that I can be more of a sponge and continue to learn from other people, because that's how you grow. And I think, I don't think any failure is a failure because you're growing from that. Like, I look at my divorce and people, this or that, but I have 4 beautiful children from it, and I wouldn't change that for anything. So anyway.
And hey, being naive is a good thing, because I remember they were like, you got to go sell this, you got to just go do this. I'm like, cool, I don't know what else I can do. I don't have to, right? I was just like, okay, you be successful, I'm in. Whereas now, sometimes like that never worked. I've done that 1,000 times. Well, that's that naive self where you just like never dug in and just like, I'm going to try this because they said it worked.
Yep.
Like, where did that, get dated through time where sometimes it's like, my first insurance job, they like sell 100 policies. I didn't even know what that meant, but I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, these are the steps. Here we go.
It's true. It's so true.
These days, sometimes you start building that head track and all that stuff down the road where when you first start anything, you don't know what you don't know yet. And that can be a lot of fun at the same time. Even if you're failing, you don't even know that you are really.
Right.
Because you didn't have really any other expectations or, experience at that point.
Yeah,
That's great.
I love that because it's true. You don't know that you're failing because you don't know what failure is. Like you haven't had that before. You haven't.
They're like, oh, I only did 75 policies. I didn't hit 100. They're like, you're number one in the state. You're like, oh, okay. Yes, that's okay.
That's great. That's so fantastic. Well, Heather, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
What would be preferred is you can go to my website. I don't know if you want to say that or put it out there.
I will.
It's super easy, very complicated. It's heatherferrari.com. Ferrari is just like the car. And there's a contact name for your name, phone number, email, and then kind of what you're looking for, what you'd like to talk about. And then from there, I usually do a consult call to see if we'd be a fit, but more so to get to know a person and see what their needs are, and I can help them, and ultimately they get to decide that for themselves. So that would be how people get a hold of me, and then what I do with that information.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. And Unbreakable Mompreneurs, there was so much information packed into here. So it's been phenomenal. I wish we would have been able to do this face to face, but phone will be the next best thing. And so,
yes, and thank you for your patience today. I've got a Zoom call starting right after this, and I better figure that stuff out.
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead and do
so
that.
much.
Yes, thank you. And have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Sharice Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Sharice Walker.